Welcome back to Reality Asserts Itself on the Real News Network. I'm Paul Jay. We're continuing our discussion with Nina Turner, former Ohio State Senator, college professor, public speaker, a frequent media commentator, and author. And she rose to prominence in the 2016 Democratic Party primary, where she became the most recognized face of the Bernie Sanders campaign after Bernie Sanders. And Nina joins me in the studio again. Thanks for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
So we'll pick up our discussion. As an Ohio State Senator, you were not afraid of taking on various powers that be. One of the bills you're known for is at least nicknamed the erectile dysfunction bill. What's that all about?
Yes, it was really my pushback against the heartbeat bill, which unfortunately my Republican colleagues pushed in this General Assembly and they did pass a bill that after 20 weeks, abortions are not allowed in Ohio, and not even for incest or rape. It's just ridiculous. But yeah, when I was in the General Assembly in 2012, I pushed back on those kinds of bills, and I thought to myself, wow, I'm not here to talk about education or small businesses or infrastructure. I am here to regulate a man's health. And so I did introduce the erectile dysfunction bill. Needless to say, it didn't pass, but I pushed that bill to really draw attention to the fact that it is crazy, insane, and vitally unfair to make women have to jump through hoops for their reproductive health care. But in my bill, a man would have to have a signed affidavit by his significant other attesting to the fact that he has problems, have a sex therapist talk to him about those problems to determine whether they're physical or psychological, take a cardiac stress test every 90 days. And seriously, Paul J., those pills have some health side effects. I want to make sure that the man is healthy and that he is fully cognizant of what he's doing. That bill did get international attention. As a matter of fact, there were women legislators across this country that picked up, on that pattern. I think there were about 6 of us, and I actually made contact with them. But really just to say that we have real issues that we should be working on as members of the legislature, and regulating women's reproductive health is not one of them.
Trump won Ohio, right?
He did, by about 8 points.
And I understand why the Clinton campaign didn't win. I understand in defending the status quo, which is what Clinton was, why working class people, especially poor and the lower wage scale of the working class, shifted, not all, but a significant number shifted to Trump, and he, I think, outright won over 50 people, workers making more than $50,000. A lot of union members in Ohio. But I understand the Clinton campaign not understanding or not knowing how to deal, or couldn't because of her defense of the status quo, her connections with Wall Street. But why does the Ohio Democratic Party not do better in rural, small town, and even beginning now, even amongst some urban workers? What's the disconnect there for Ohio Democrats? Because you would think that kind of a state should be, neither of us are enormous fans of corporate Democrats, but they shouldn't be voting, one would think, for Republicans, but they do.
Well, Ohio is the quintessential swing state. I mean, we're called that for a reason. In presidential election years, we really swing. I mean, in 2008 and 2012, this is the state that voted for President Barack Obama. I remember in 2008 when Ohio was called, everybody knew that it was over, because no Republican has won the White House without winning Ohio. And certainly Ohio continues that tradition, as we see in 2016. It is really a disconnect that is going on between the rhetoric of my party and the reality of that party. And some of it, though, in all fairness, does have to do with redistricting. For Democrats to lose in 2010, I mean, it's never good to lose, but to lose in 2010 set the Democratic Party back for at least a decade, maybe even 2 decades, when you lose that way, and whoever controls the pen controls a lot of the legislative realities, both state legislative districts, but also the congressional districts as well. And so we see the bleeding of that. But we've lost our way in terms of really connecting and communicating with working class people across the state. And not just only Reagan Democrats, but as we noticed in this presidential election, even people of color, the so-called Obama coalition, did not show up at the same level that it did in 2008 and also in 2012. But we really have to start to connect with people's hearts more. We got to get out there and talk about the problems and the issues that matter to them. Yeah.
Now, the majority of the Trump vote, I think to some extent, this disenchanted section of the working class and poor that voted for Trump, to some extent, that gets a little exaggerated in the sense that the majority of the Trump vote, if I understand it correctly, are traditional Republican voters. And most of them just want lower taxes, and they own stuff, and they're doing well enough, and they want to keep their stuff, and they don't want anyone to take their stuff away from them. But amongst that section of the working class and poor, the disconnect, like the ability for Republicans to make an argument that free competition and free markets and all of this is somehow going to solve the problem facing workers, it seems like such a failure to explain what the issues are. But part of that is that when push comes to shove, when the Democrats actually govern, the character of the Democratic Party is, in fact, on a national scale, finance really controls the machinery of the party.
That's right.
And on the local scale, we see it in Baltimore, developers, big money, beats
it's the same story.
Calls the tune.
That's right, everywhere. I mean, and that's it. This was a non-establishment year, and the Democrats' biggest failure, both on the state party level and the national level, is that we refuse to hear the cries of the people, the coalition of the forgotten. Basically said, we're not going to take this anymore. We mad as hell, and we're not going to take it anymore. And we're going to vote either by not voting, or we're going to vote for Mr. Trump, even though in some ways a lot of what's being propagated, and we certainly can see by the choices in his cabinet. I mean, he picks a guy that is anti-labor in every way, believes that machines matter more than people, does not believe in lifting the minimum wage, but this is the person that Mr. Trump is putting forth for his labor secretary. And then he's also he has nominated a gentleman who doesn't believe climate change is real. So a lot of it is the antithesis of what people were saying that they wanted. But Democrats, establishment Democrats, were not listening and really shamed a lot of people. I believe many of the polls were wrong because we made it unbearable for folks who were leaning in that direction to say it out loud, because you want to lambaste them if they say it. If we had created an environment, again, of seeking first to understand and then to be understood, I think polling in this country would have been more realistic to what actually happened in 2016. Democrats have to get it together, and it's not enough to continue to blame the Russians. You can't keep blaming the Russians. We lost. We got beat like a drum.
When the election season began, you initially were going to endorse Hillary Clinton. I think this is before Bernie entered the race.
It was. I had done some things for Ready for Hillary. I was asked by Ready for Hillary. This was the latter part of 2014, and I'm like, what the heck, let's do it. I hope she does run. This is not about her getting into the race. So yes, I did.
And Bernie gets into the race, and you change your mind.
Oh my God. Just listening to him, and I'll never forget my husband. He said, baby, do you know about this Bernie Sanders, this Senator Bernie Sanders? And I said, yes, I do. He said, no, but do you really know about him? I think you should really check him out. And I did.
Your husband's a retired cop.
He is. In a deeper way.
And your son's a cop.
And my son, yes, law enforcement.
We'll talk more about that later.
But yeah, and I did take a deeper dive, and I said, my husband, I'll never forget, he said, this senator has the same righteous indignation as you have. And when I really started to go deep and look at, oh my God, at the age of 21, he's at the University of Chicago fighting against, racism and discrimination in housing, being chained to an African-American woman, that he was one of very few white elected folks who supported just Brevin.
Given earlier in the interview,
Yeah.
you went through all the things that Bill Clinton had done as president that did severe harm to African Americans. Why were you willing to endorse her?
Well, you know, I mean, I didn't necessarily endorse, but I was on the Ready for Hillary. You know, I got out there, you know, let's encourage her to run. I mean, she's not her husband. And in some ways in some ways it was unfair. In other ways, to the extent that the secretary brought out her husband's record, made it fair game, then you can't have all the good and none of the bad. You know, the fact that she was out there pushing for the crime bill, she wasn't just the first lady in the back. She actually lobbied for the crime bill. She said the words, you know, we got to bring them to heel in reference to African American youth.
Not just gangs of kids anymore. They are often the kinds of kids that are called super predators. No conscience, no empathy. We can talk about why they ended up that way, but first we have to bring them to heel.
So at the same time, the Democrats wanted to push a good economy under the Clinton administration. They wanted all of the good and none of the bad. You can't have it both ways. You got to take the bitter with the sweet, so to speak. But that doesn't mean that she should not have ran. You know, in many ways, looking back on this, one of the biggest flaws of the Democratic Party is that they shut out other folks from running. And they may never want to say that, but that is the truth. That is what is really the reality.
I guess what I'm getting at is it seems to me that when, you know, get ready for Hillary, it's the Democratic Party thing to do. When they come and talk to you,
and
I'm a Democrat.
I will admit, absolutely,
And
it was.
You know, partly the endorsement of Bernie, but also, I guess I'm asking, the experience itself. Does it kind of flip that, hey, hang on, maybe this loyalty, like you said earlier in the beginning of the interview, not blind loyalty, like you start to see through that?
And I did. You know, everybody expected me to endorse. You know, how don't you endorse? You got out there. But when your eyes are open and when you have new information, you got to critique a situation in a different way. And I wasn't willing to give up my integrity and all the things that I really have fought for in my political career for convenience. And make no mistake about it, it was very inconvenient in terms of my politics, in terms of, I mean, I was threatened along the way. You'll never run for office again. We're going to get you. This is not over. You betrayed. You know, all of the negative and wicked things. But this is America where you want to talk about choice. Don't I have, this is not just about reproductive choice, but don't I have a choice? I have a decision. I am a free-thinking human being in America, and I have a right to have choice. But people want to strip. I'll never forget when the word got out that I was formally endorsing Senator Sanders, and I was at a Planned Parenthood event in Cleveland, and the president of Planned Parenthood, Paul, called me up, and she said, Nina, you know, my phone has been ringing off the hook. About 50 people called me. Is it true? Are you endorsing Senator Bernie Sanders? And I said, absolutely, it's true. She said, I'm going to do everything I can to protect you, and I hope that you don't get booed, because I had a role. I had to introduce someone that was on the program in Cleveland, and I said, I wish they would boo me in my city. But think about this, at a Planned Parenthood event where we're talking about choice, we're talking about reproductive choice, and we got folks in the room who want to deny me my choice. And a woman came up, and this came out in WikiLeaks a little bit, and she told me what a disappointment I was and how I'm betraying the Clintons, and I should be ashamed of myself. And I told this woman, I said, I'm not on the plantation anymore. And my ancestors died for my right to be a thinking and free woman. And I've thought about this, and this is who I'm endorsing. It had gotten so intense that two people had to separate us, but she came and got in my face to tell me how ashamed she was. And she said, after all we've done for you, after all, and I interpreted that as, black girl, after all we've done for you, us good liberal white folks, and you turn your back.
Yeah, we let you in the club.
We let you in. Yeah, but and this came from Democrats, not from Republicans, and that's why when people hear me just in sound bites being very critical, I am critical of a party that enjoys the majority of the African American vote, yet there's never been a black woman governor in this country under Democrats.
When you make this decision to endorse Bernie, you know what you're getting into. You're savvy. You're a politician. You know what's happening.
Out of the frying pan into the fire.
And you got to know this is not the best career move. And certainly at that time, now Hillary won, and it did get close later on, but when you got in,
It was far
nobody
from
thought Sanders had a chance.
It was a game changer for the Sanders campaign. And if you ask Senator Sanders or even his campaign manager, they would tell you that. When the word hit Lawrence O'Donnell, I'll never forget. I was getting on the airplane, and they said, "We got an interview, breaking news," and I'm trying to get on the plane. I'm like, "You guys, they're going to close the doors." But Lawrence O'Donnell, my first real interview about this happened on the airplane right before they were closing the doors of Nina Turner. They said switches, which I resent that to this day. Not just Lawrence didn't say it, but that was the media narrative. She switches. But that is how important it was, because at that time the senator did not necessarily have prominent,
It was important to his campaign, but I'm sure people told you at the time it was political suicide for you.
The chair of the Democratic Party, who I admire a lot, have lots of respect for, said to me, "Do you have to do this? You know that, something could happen. It's going to be hard for you." But I wanted to sleep at night, and I wanted to be able to look in the mirror. And when I juxtaposition all of the things that Senator Bernard Sanders, the Democratic Socialist from Vermont, was fighting for and speaking up for, where he called out Wall Street, where he said that working class people in this country deserve better than what they've gotten, that millionaires and billionaires can't have it all, when he talked about the 5 violence. I did understand it fully, clearly, that there was going to be consequences for me.
And at the DNC convention in Philadelphia, when Bernie Sanders asked you to be one of the people that put him into nomination, the DNC, the Clinton campaign, they decided to punish you for this.
They did. They told Senator Sanders that it wasn't going to happen. They wouldn't even allow Senator Sanders to show a video that had my image in it. That's how deep it had gotten. And I'm finding out all of this stuff, after the fact.
Because they want to prove this is political suicide.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. They're going to a public shaming. And all of this happened at the same time that they were trotting out mothers of the movement, black women who had lost their sons or their daughters through police, encounters. That's light. I probably shouldn't call it an encounter, but through, police, the mothers of the movement. They trotted out black women. Cecile Richards, the president of Planned Parenthood, I'll never forget, she gave a speech about how Secretary Clinton was going to give voice to women, yet my voice was cut out. And nobody, I shouldn't say nobody, because the Bernie-crats went crazy, but I'm just saying, even people who supported the Clintons should have said that's wrong. And if they really wanted to build a bridge, me on the stage for 2 minutes talking about Senator Bernie Sanders would have really brought the Bernie-crats and given them something to hope for. But they denied me of that.
To prove the point that you cannot
There's consequence. You will be punished.
There is consequence.
You will be punished.
Nina Turner, as you know, former senator, is a beloved and respected surrogate for Bernie Sanders. Charismatic, has worked so hard all this time. And it was Bernie's wish that she speak on Monday and also on Tuesday to introduce his nomination. This did not happen.
We felt that she was a good spokesman not only for the Bernie Sanders campaign, but for nurses and for our patients. And it is a travesty that she was not able to be up there to represent us, because the nurses felt that she was part of their group.
And I think if they let Tulsi Gabbard come and do it. So this is something particularly about a black woman, we let you in.
There it is.
And you're going to be punished for what you did.
But look at the contradiction of what you just said. The very community where the livelihood of the Democratic Party will rise and fall, who in this election cycle, Secretary Clinton got 94% of the black woman vote, a little over 80% of the black male vote, but yet it is totally acceptable in the confines of that to try to cut down somebody that has been a loyal Democrat. And my only crime was to be the fiercest surrogate for Senator Bernie Sanders, but I'm still a Democrat in good standing, still believe in this party. I'm still loyal to this party, but I'm not blindly loyal. And I did no more or less than Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, or then, my brother Ben Jealous. But yet they wanted to show me that there are consequences. And I do have to say, Paul J., I want to give a shout out to the Bernie-crats who had my back. You were there and you saw the outpouring, the National Nurses United, the people like Danny Glover and Susan Sarandon and Rosario and Shailene Woodley.
There's a rally held right in the press room
press
there,
tent.
and with people with I'm with Nina.
Yeah.
In fact, most of you guys I think ended up in the Real News.
Yeah, we did. That was my way. And Tara Mosley Samples, my dear sister from Cleveland, who's on the Cleveland, or excuse me, from Akron, and she's on Akron City Council, who was right there with me.
Should Bernie have fought that more?
He could have, in public, you mean, because he did fight it behind the scenes. I mean, I talked to the senator, of course, and I talked to Dr. Jane Sanders, who told me that all along the way, all of the crap that the senator had to take in this fight, the only time she really heard him raise his voice is when he was told that I would not be allowed to put his name in nomination. So yeah, he could have.
I guess they put him in a position he would have had to walk out.
Absolutely, and I respect the senator immensely, and there's nothing in the world that can change that. I wish this had turned out a different way. Certainly the Clinton camp did not have to do what they did, so the burden falls on them. They're the ones that created this situation. It didn't have to happen because I still believe, even though I'm going to challenge my party. I now say I'm from the Shirley Chisholm, Bernie Sanders wing of the Democratic Party. We got a whole new wing. But I still believe that the Democratic Party can be that party indeed, not just in words, for working people in this country. We need it. We have to have it.
All right, we're going to pick up on that in the next section of the interview. Please join us for the continuation of my interview with Nina Turner on Reality Asserts Itself on the Real News Network.